Okay, I think we are ready to start.
Hey.
Hello, last joiner.
Reboot is coming too.
Yeah.
We couldn't find her. Oh, Jennifer. So I don't know if you want to send.
All right, so thank you for joining the 6th event of the Stockholm Meetup Reboot. I am Andrea Martinello, CEO of Florence Next. We are a company vertically in MuleSoft and integration, and now most recently approaching also the CRM market with the strategic partnership with Sirocco. Today, we are going to speak about SAP from an integration point of view. But with the ECC approaching its end of life, we will also look at it from a migration perspective, how MuleSoft can help centralization of business objects when you have like several different ERP as well. So without further ado, I'll introduce the first speaker, Alberto Ferrario from Florence Next. Please.
Hello everyone. Let's start. Thank you, Andrea, for the introduction. My first speech will be about MuleSoft integration from SAP ERP to the new S/4HANA product. So let's start with a quick introduction about myself. As I said, I'm Alberto Ferrario. I have about 10 years experience in the IT sector and about 8 years in the integration field with MuleSoft and Florence Next. I have also all the certification as a developer and architect, and I'm also a Salesforce developer and Azure Fundamental certified. Okay, so today we will start with a quick overview about SAP, the product and the company. Then we will move to the SAP architecture, a quick view of the SAP S/4HANA product and its HANA database, and then jump to the integration part with MuleSoft, and also we will take a look to the how to integrate and coexist with the SAP integration tool like PO, PI, and the CPI tools. And then some questions. Okay, let's start with the SAP overview about the company and the product. So SAP stands for System Application and Product in the Data Processing. I won't repeat the German word because I'm not able to. Anyhow, SAP is a German multinational software company based in Waldorf, Baden, with more than 105,000 employees worldwide. It's the leading ERP software vendor, and it's the third largest public traded software company by revenue, the first North American one. Also here, I reported the Gartner Magic Quadrant for the ERP, and as you can see, SAP, mostly the new S/4HANA, is reported as a leader. Then I would like to show you about the product and the company history. The company was founded in the 1972, where they released their first product, but the first real mainframe version was released in the 79. The company was quite small with 5 million revenue, about 60 employees and 50 customers in just two countries. Sorry, just some new attendees joining us. Hello. Let's continue. In the 92, they released their first client-server version, the famous R3 configuration. And then they start improving and customizing their SAP ERP product till the 2015, when they released the new S/4HANA with a new code line and the company was quite huge already, with 70 billion revenue, 68,000 employees, and more than 250,000 customers in more than 120 countries in the world. Okay, so the overview is finished. Let's start. Let's jump in the technical side of my presentation. We will start about the SAP architecture. I would like first to discuss the three-tier architecture. I guess most of the people here know this very famous software application architecture. Is it? Okay. I will, anyhow, I will explain for the rest of the audience. So a three-tier architecture is a software application architecture that organizes application in three logical and physical computing tiers. First one, we have the presentation layer, which is the user interface of the application, where the end user interacts with the software, with the application. Second layer is the application layer, also known as logical or middle tier. It's the heart of the application and contains most of the business logic, normally also coded with some coding language. Third one is the data layer, where the data is stored and managed, consists of storage and a program to perform read and write operations. So considering this architecture, we will analyze now how the SAP product evolved in his several releases. First of all, first version was the R3 central system, so where we have all the three layers in a single place. So we have one single host responsible for all the processing tasks. Second one is the two-tier configuration, the mainframe version of the software, where we have the data and application layer in one single server, and then one or more presentation system at the presentation layer that communicate concurrently and transactionally with the mainframe. Third one, the three-tier configuration, the client-server version of the software, where the three layers are installed in three or more independent server and system. Furthermore, we have the three-tier configuration web-enabled, which is also the base of the current ECC product, the central component product. So they just add in the architecture this further server, the internet transaction service, and also web services that provide web access to the SAP product, communicating with ABAP protocols behind the scene. And potentially at the presentation layer of any client is its browser or the SAP application. Another important thing that I would like to show you, discuss with you, is about the SAP modules. As you know, SAP is a composable and modular and composable platform where you can use different modules and coordinate with them. We have two main groups of the modules. The first one are the technical modules, where we have ABAP with its interface and protocol. We have Basis, which is the place where you configure and customize and manage your platform. We have the old BE and BVW, which are the old data warehouse, and also the NetWeaver platform, which is the web server that communicate behind the scene with in ABAP protocol. And then we have all the functional modules. As you know, as an RP, SAP can work with several different industrial, and also inside a company, you have different departments. So here, for instance, we have you can see some example. We have the HR module, we have the MM, Material Master, we have the FICO, Financial Controlling, Quality Management, and so on. Inside your company, in your organization, you will have a group, a set of these different modules that communicate and collaborate together. Okay, so the part of the old SAP world is done. Let's start, have a quick view on the SAP for HANA. First of all, I would like to debunk some myths about S/4HANA. In my career, I had the chance to talk with several developers and architects, and there was at least a sort of feeling of mystery about this new S/4HANA. What is it? Oh. So first myth that I would like to debunk is S/4HANA is completely a new product of SAP. That's not true. The answer is no. S/4HANA is just the new version of the SAP Business Suite, and like the R3, R2 version, but with just a new code line. Second myth is S/4HANA, sorry, is only available on cloud version, as a cloud version. The answer is no. S/4HANA is also available on premise. You can install in your organization data center or even in your cloud hosting partner. Third myth is the ABAP programming language is no longer available in the platform. The answer is no again. Behind the scene, it's still a ABAP-based platform, and as I will show you soon, you will still use this protocol and interfaces behind the scene. Okay, next slide. I would like to show you how the product evolved again from the ERP version to the new S/4HANA. So in the old first version of the ERP, as you can see, the three parts, the three components, the three layer, and at the data layer, potentially you could install different database technology. This to have the possibility to work with the existing database the companies have in their own. In the next product, they made SAP HANA database as mandatory, also in order to take advantage of all the functionality. Next, they introduced the SAP S/4HANA module as an add-on on the top of the ERP, mostly for the financial world. And then in the last version, you can see that SAP englobe also the SAP S/4HANA englobe also the ERP part, and at the data layer, they provide the new version of the DB. Let's move on the HANA database. As they say, the database of the future, SAP says so. Could be true, but so SAP HANA stands for High Performance Analytic Appliance. It is a multi-model database that provides different functionality capabilities. First one, it's an in-memory database, so RAM instead of traditional hard disk or SSD storage, delivering faster queries and also avoiding costly full table scan. Second one, HANA, it's a columnar database. So you have both row-based and column-based storage. This allows you, your company, to run advanced analytics, OLAP, alongside with high-speed transaction, or OLTP, both in one single system. And I guess here you guys know how much it is complex to convert your relational data to an analytical model. And here it's almost provided out of the box by the product. Third one, we have also a simplified data model. So they reduce a lot the data footprint, taking advantage of highly compressed data, strong indexing, and also less table in the database architecture. Last but not least, S/HANA has built-in capabilities to intelligently manage data between RAM memory and the persistent storage, maximizing the speed and what is it. Okay, so let's jump on the integration side, mostly with MuleSoft. As you probably know, MuleSoft provides a set of premium connectors that are SAP certified. So SAP approve and review these connectors. The first connectors that the first connector that I want to show you is about the SAP ERP connector for the old ECC component. Here we communicate at very low level with the SAP system with RFC protocols. We have outbound and inbound operation. For the outbound, we can execute BAPI function over RFC, both synchronous and asynchronous. And we can also send IDOC still over RFC, but through the queued or the transactional RFC protocols. As inbound, instead, MuleSoft can act as a JCO server. I will explain what is a JCO later, and can be called as a BAPI over synchronous and asynchronous RFC. And also you can receive IDOC over the transactional or queued RFC protocol. Let's spend some word about the JCO libraries. JCO is a set of libraries maintained by SAP that allow the communication between Java application and the SAP system. You can see here in the slide, in the product stack, how starting from a JCO Java interface that communicate with your application, in this various step you go, and finally you can directly talk in the RFC language. And indeed, as you know, probably MuleSoft is a Java-based platform. Also, the JCO library are specific for operating system. So you have to configure accordingly to your operating system of your machine. Let's evaluate some pros and cons. First of all, these protocols, since they are native in SAP, they are free of charge. And they are also excellent interface for the SAP business object, because you talk directly with the core of the system. On the other hand, they are complicated interface. There is verbose coding. As I said, you need a proper Maven configuration to manage the different libraries. Think about the developer normally works with a Windows or Apple laptop, PC, but then the runtime, the MuleSoft runtime in Cloud Hub or Runtime Fabric runs in a Unix environment. So you have to properly set the right library accordingly to the target system, normally via Maven profiles. Another consideration is that if your customer, your organization, doesn't want to spend extra money and purchase this connector, you are required to create your custom Java connector to integrate with JCO, which is complex, time-consuming, and also you need strong Java expertise. Let's move on instead to the new S/4HANA world. Also here, MuleSoft provide a couple of connectors to communicate and integrate with S/4HANA. We use mostly two different protocols to communicate. The first one is SAP Web Services, where you can automatically discover your SAP services, and you can invoke the SAP services and their operations. Second connector is related to the RESTful OData APIs, since SAP provides a OData API layer where you can, and with the connector you can create, update, delete entities. You can query directly multiple entities directly to the system. You can also invoke the remote function, as we have done for the ECC world. And also you can execute batch requests that consist of multiple requests in a chain. Some consideration, I would say, also consider my experience, that REST and SOAP are better integration method compared with Java connection. They are standardized, platform-independent communication. They support different data format, also ensuring simplicity, scalability, and interoperability. If I had to find a gap here, I would say that in order to expose your ABAP function and interface as OData and SOAP, you need extra configuration on the SAP side. So you need to collaborate with the SAP team in order to expose the functionality that you want to use. On the other hand, in case your customer doesn't purchase this connector apart, MuleSoft provide other connector that can natively talk with this protocol, which are the HTTP requester connector that can invoke OData APIs, and the web service consumer connector to communicate, integrate with SOAP services. Okay, last chapter topic of my presentation will be about the existing integration tool provided by SAP, the famous POPI and the CPI tools, and how to coexist or replace. So in my career working in several SAP projects, I discovered that normally a company with SAP, they are quite huge. They don't have just a single instance of SAP in one place, but they have several entities distributed in different places that need to integrate together. So we have three main scenarios here. The first one is the ground to cloud, where some instances are in some private data center, some other on the cloud. And here you have the possibility to find both CPI or POPI tool. Second scenario is a cloud-to-cloud environment where all your instances are in different cloud with different provider. And third one is, and here most of the time you will work with CPI. Third scenario is probably the most common with the company that take advantage of SAP for a long time. It's a ground-to-ground environment. So you have several instances of SAP distributed in private data center or also in a single one. And most of the time you will have to integrate with the POPI layer. So one more slide about how to communicate, coexist with the system. So we have, I guess there are two main options to when you want to introduce MuleSoft in this complex ecosystem. We have two main options. The first one is to put MuleSoft on the top of the integration, the existing integration tool, which allows you to unlock the value of SAP faster. Also in a proper API-led connectivity layer, you can connect quite fast different instances of SAP. But as you can imagine, it's not so best practice since you have two middleware in cascade. So the second option instead is to dismantle the existing integration tool and replace it with MuleSoft. But this is also not so easy. In my experience, mostly with POPI, when you POPI, in POPI, normally there are a lot of point-to-point connection with a proliferation of sub-services. So you can imagine that if you have hundreds and hundreds of sub-services, you cannot just from the day one dismantle all of them and replace with MuleSoft. So I would suggest to start with the option one in order to unlock the value as faster as we can. And then accordingly to the business, also when the need comes up that we need to change some business logic, in that case, you can take and replace system by system with a proper planning, a timeline. Okay, that's it. I'm done with my presentation. Thank you for to be here. And if there is any question, please, Andrea, you. Just let me mute myself.
I enable the question and answer tab. If you guys have any, you can also send it there. I will try to address those. For now, it looks like there are none. So please, the next speaker.
Great. Thank you so much, Alberto. Yeah. Great.
As we switch, give me just 1 second to make sure that my sessions are all up so we don't break the momentum when we go through the demo. Yeah, one session timed out. So this is a good moment if there are other questions. I just want to log in.
There is one question, actually. There is one question from Mohammed. What are the advantages of MuleSoft compared to SAP Integration Suite?
Should I answer
I
that?
think you are, yeah, you can speak there.
Yeah, we are unmuted, so.
Please go back also on my slide. I would like to show one of the.
Okay, I will share the screen again.
Pardon.
No problem.
Oopla. Just a second. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I will say that if you use the existing SAP integration tool, you will always have a SAP-centric integration. Instead, with MuleSoft, you can abstract on your SAP system and also other system in your landscape and create a layer where you are not talking with SAP, but with the business object of the company. So we have a more abstraction compared with an SAP integration tool.
Yeah. You wanted to add more?
No, please.
Then I could pitch in as well. Yeah, it's also, we typically, we never challenge it. We do agree that SAP to SAP integrations are best to be handled by SAP's provided tools for integrations. But then typically when you're looking to integrating SAP with other systems, applications, non-SAP, right, outside of the SAP landscape, it's good to look into technologies that are focused to handle integration also with non-SAP systems, right? Because, and then naturally we come to MuleSoft, right? Our focus is to connect any application, data, and device. So we see ourselves as an extension to SAP when it comes to integration.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I guess we answered the question. Okay.
I hope this answers your question, Mohammed.
Any other questions? I just have, I think, one more session to check.
One more question, yes.
Very good.
How are we going to achieve IDOC listener scenario in S4HANA?
Still, can I talk here?
Yes.
Well, again, as I'm not an SAP expert, but in S4HANA, you can expose your OData, also RFC, as OData API. So you are talking directly with SAP business object, and you can easily create, delete, also run batch through the OData layer provided by SAP.
Cool. If all good, I'm ready as well to pull up the deck. Let me share my screen. Thank you, Alberto. Okay, so can you hear me? Can you see my screen? And not only in person, but also online? Yeah, looks good. Great. So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today's meetup out of the Stockholm office. My name is Anna Kiritsescu. I'm a solutions engineer here with MuleSoft. 5 years now with MuleSoft Salesforce. Before that, I worked as an integration specialist and architect in MuleSoft deliveries for 4 years, and roughly architect integration specialist for 15 years, 16 years. So today I have the pleasure to expand the point of view shared by Alberto, focused more on demo, right? So we set a foundation around what SAP is, ECC, S4. Why are we talking about it in the context of MuleSoft, right? The end of life of ECC with extension that's very expensive for moving to the future ERP, S4HANA in this case, or it could be moving from another legacy ERP to S4HANA. I'll skip the MuleSoft connectors because Alberto did a great work there. And I will be showing you two demos. One is around synchronizing. So it's part of an order to cash process. One is around synchronizing orders from Salesforce to ECC. And for that, we will be using the SAP connector for ECC, which also works for S/4HANA on-prem. And the other is around Salesforce to S/4HANA connectivity order to cash. And the reason is customers, right, might have an integration today where they use ECC as their core ERP, but then move to S4 moving forward. So at the end, you will see why we look at these two demos, and it has to do with easing the switch between different backend systems, core systems, okay? We take Q&A towards the end, so please write them live as they come so you don't forget. And also here in the room if any questions. Great. Just a note, there are multiple assets that we have in AnyPoint Exchange around SAP integrations. We showed the connectors that are relevant for this topic, but we have SAP connectors for other SAP systems. We also have accelerators. So we encourage you to log in and take a look. And briefly, a reminder, right, if you are new to building your first integration with S4, Alberto talked already about the JKO libraries that would be added in the connector. What's good to know is that these libraries will be available for you from the SAP admin site, right? So you would download them from there. And there is one library which is OS or operating system native, which is the JKO native library. So I'm running my demo on a Mac, hence I'm using the library for Mac. If you deploy this application to Cloud Hub, switch first the library to the one for Linux, because this is what we use as an operating system, okay? Great, and our demo looks pretty much the same, right? It's the same flow, but different backend systems. So what you will see here, starting from Salesforce, using the SAP connectors, how an order is created and how this is synchronized with SAP. And the connector handles hides, let's say, you don't need to be aware of how session handling needs to be done with SAP. On the transformation side, you will see that we have access to data sense as you are used to. So in DataWave, it's easy to map the fields. Then as we close the opportunity, this will be synchronized in SAP. There's also authentication, error logging, and everything is handled with the connector, okay? How the flow looks, right? We usually show this because it's quite easy to relate. So on the ECC side, Salesforce is the channel of engagement on the experience level. And then we have order fulfillment process API and product info, and they will be used to both get product availability status in Salesforce before sending the order to SAP. Okay, and similarly for the S/4HANA demo, where we replace the, instead of ECC, you would be using S4, as this is the future ERP for the customer or your implementation. Good, so let's start with the ECC implementation. So for this, I will be showing you live both the Salesforce org, where the order is created, and ECC, where we want to see that this order appears. So I'm going to my tab. This is what I checked earlier to make sure that the sessions are up and running. So I'm showing you the NetWeaver web client for ECC, and this is the Salesforce org where we will create the order. And we will also browse through AnyPoint platform where the application is deployed and Studio. Just refreshing everything to make sure they are up and running. So from Salesforce, I go to opportunities and I will add a new opportunity. We give it a name, new phone order, and it's 23rd of November, okay? And I tie it to my demo account. We give it a close date. You can provide further details as well, and just we set it in a stage which is different than closed. As I save this opportunity, I will add the product that is ordered, which is a telephone. The quantity, 1 in this case, and then save. Next, right, because this is an order, you want to make sure that there's enough stock, so available to promise in ECC. And for that, I'll check on the product, and you will see here that we have details around the product configured, list price, what existed in Salesforce already. And as I check available to promise button, as I click this, it will run through MuleSoft and check the SAP availability. So now we have availability, the number of products, so there's enough telephones to order, and the date when this was checked. Okay, so all good. It means I can close my opportunity. Basically, I can order it. I just want to, is the screen large enough? I think so, right? I want to draw your attention that you see right now the SAP sync is unchecked because this order hasn't been sent to SAP, and also we don't have yet the order created, so no order number, okay? Let's switch the stage of the opportunity to closed one and save that. Let's see what happens. So the opportunity is updated, and then if we refresh here, we should now see if the integration with ECC worked, right? So you see we have the SAP sync checked, and we also have the order number. Next, let's make sure, right? I would like to show you in ECC that the order actually exists, right? This is a live demo that actually works. So on that note, I go back to the SAP instance. I will show you, I have the configuration in Studio. And here in delivery, because you could actually create, you could expand the demo and create a delivery note, but I will just, due to interest of time, I will just show you here that we can search, we can find that order in the system. So I copied the order number, right? You see it ends in 8112. I paste it here, and you can see the order is available. We do not have yet a schedule for it, but it is what we have added in, okay? So with the telephone ordered, so it was synchronized using MuleSoft integration, process system API, and the connector. Let me show you briefly how that looks here on the Studio side, and we might have to zoom in because I'm not able to see. So this is the actual system API or the API implementation. And if you go to global, you will see the configuration of the connector, both Salesforce and SAP ECC. So let's zoom a bit into that. So here I have the properties, which are configured in the properties file and referenced, and then the libraries I talked about, okay? So you can test the connectivity already from design time as it's configured, which is very, very handy when you get started with the first implementation. So test successful. And then this integration is back and forth, as you noticed, right? We received the order from Salesforce. It was synchronized in ECC. And then from ECC through MuleSoft, the outbound request was, we got the order status, as you could see, synced, and the order number, okay? So in a nutshell, when it comes to order being created in SAP, in Salesforce, we subscribe, we use the Salesforce connector and listen on the topic for the order that's published. and then we process that order received from Salesforce, and this is basically the RFC, remote function call, used in the SAP connector to actually create the order in ECC. What I personally like, right, about the connector is that we try to compensate. You don't need to be a SAP expert. Of course, you will need to know what a BAP is, what an IDOC is, but there's typically, right, with SAP, when you integrate directly, you need to have specialized expertise, or you need to find the SAP specialist developer in the organization that can help you out, right? But here it's the configuration that you add, and then 1 second. Let me see if I can show you the actual data mapping also, because we get the payload, and then we are referencing a flow. I'm going to that. Okay, and this is we send it as is. So it's quite a simple mapping in this case. Okay. Overall, if you look at the connector, let me click here, you have this visual representation. So the connector gives you the data sense. It shows you what comes in, how that looks, in a way easy to understand, so you can map it to the output, what you want to result. Okay. And then where the application is running, this application is actually in Cloud Hub. So I have it in the environment. It's called order to cash. And you can follow through the logs. For instance, we can search for our order number here, right? So this application picked up our request a few minutes ago, roughly 5 minutes ago, and it called ECC, created the order. And similarly, we have the request to get available to promise as well. Okay. And right, fast forward. Okay, signed out. This I haven't checked. Give me 1 second. I need to sign in again. I stopped sharing, I believe. Right? Very good.
Yes. Yeah, you stop sharing.
Yeah, very good. So fast forward, right, today to the present, 2023, end of the year almost. Let me share the screen again. There's this need to move, right? You might have different reasons for that. But in interest of time, let me show you the actual demo. So we will run similar flow, only that our backend changed to S/4HANA, right? So when you do this, also for the integration, as you see with the API-led connectivity approach, you can contain the switch as you transition. So let me show you now the more glossy UI, right? So this is S/4HANA web. And here we will be checking for order that was created, okay? But as you know, we will first create the order in the Salesforce org. So for that, I will create an opportunity. There's an opportunity to sell. How should we call it? Opportunity. Okay. And it is to purchase a product again. I'll send today date. Okay, other information is welcomed but not necessary. So again, ordering a product, a telephone, one quantity. And here you would again want to make sure that there's enough stock in S4 this time. We already get some information, but let me refresh. Available to promise. Again, it goes through MuleSoft, And you see we have 2,000 more products, which is great, right? I can go ahead with my order. And to do that, I will change the stage. I can close it. So close one. And now let's see if we can find our order in S4HANA. So I'm managing sales orders, and I will just list all of them. And you can see here the actual opportunity created. Okay, so we can click and get more information. It's quite fast, right? Real time, we've seen it. We have the details, and then we can continue the order to cash process moving along. How is the Mule application looking? Let me close the ECC and let's take a look at the S4HANA implementation. I have my configuration of the connector in the global MuleSoft configuration file. And for this demo, we are using the S4HANA connector for OData APIs, because we have two, one for OData, one for SOAP. And the connector takes away the complexity of handling error, connectivity, gives you the metadata, so the structure view in the IDE. Okay, so connection was successful. Unlike ECC, right, it's easier. You do not need the specific libraries. And then in the implementation as well, you will see it's an API implementation where when an order is created, the request is routed and the order is sent. We have the transformation of the actual order from Salesforce, and then it's sent to the actual S4HANA. Okay, we pass it here as a payload, and then we transform the response as well. So in the response here, you can see really well as well what data comes out right after calling S4, which makes it easy to map as well on the visual side, because you could use the script on the data wave side, or you could drag and drop with the mapping. And if you add an example of data, as with all the other connectors in preview, you will see how the mapping looks like. So you have the option to correct, update anything needed from the design time. And similarly, the application is running in Cloud Hub, the one that we tested. And it's a order to cash again for the S4 integration. So it's a S4HANA system API, and you can see here the actual order. Let me see if I copied the right order number also. So it's a sales order. We still had the order from ECC. Okay, so we can see here the request that came in, and debugging is enabled, and one can follow the actual flow of the request back and forth between Salesforce and S4 through MuleSoft. And you might wonder, why am I showing two demos very similar, right? I didn't drink my coffee in the morning, or I missed something out, right? But it was for a purpose, because right, we were discussing about how MuleSoft can ease transition from a legacy ERP to S4. And as you see here, right, the architecture is quite similar, and at the process level, we can handle routing either to ECC or to S4. And typically, because it's about data as well, right, you could do this based on IDs of orders, right? You probably know that there was a stop of orders synchronized with ECC from an order ID number. So anything changing on those orders goes to ECC, while new orders created would go to S4. Okay. So then benefit, right? This means you can transition gradually if you take this approach. And then yeah, it's more less pressure and then also no impact on business. S/4HANA migrations can be complex, right? We do have a very recent webinar around how MuleSoft can help in S/4HANA migrations. We can share that in follow-up with Andrea and Alberto, or I can add it in the slide deck as well. Okay, so the demo worked even though it's an IC day here in Stockholm. Any questions?
Yeah, there were a couple.
Very good.
But I already answered. So.
You already answered. Oh no.
No, but let's just confirm with you that those are right.
Very
So
good.
there was a question around if the application was deployed on cloud, and of course it was in the first scenario. And how did you reach ECC from that application, which I assume is by a VPN?
Yeah, so was the question about the MuleSoft application or about
The
where?
communication between Cloud Hub and ECC, basically.
Yeah.
It's through our VPN, yeah.
Yeah, we have it set up. It's a pre-used environment, and it's running on Cloud Hub 1, so it's a VPN with a VPC configured on our instance.
Okay. Any other questions? No.
No?
Yes, one more. Is there any chance that you can explain the differences of amounts? Not sure.
When I showed the product availability?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good question. I used two different Salesforce organizations, so I just didn't use the same. So the check of available items was sent in the first demo to ECC, right?
So $50 in the Salesforce example and $100.
$500.
Oh, okay, so it's the cost of the product.
Yeah, I mean in between the two demo.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I showed two different instances of Salesforce. So if we go here, right, you are referring to, let me do a new order.
So he was following.
Very good, great question.
With attention.
Yeah, let's take. I was very focused on the connectivity, and you haven't answered that question, right, Andrea? So it's good we take it. Good. Right, so 500, yes, and this is the order to cache demo dev ed, and as far as I know, we have another org that we are using here. So, right, one is for S/4HANA demos, and the other one is for ECC integrations. I'm using one of the environments that we have available. So
this is $50.
Yeah, it's $50. Yeah, it's just different data entered in Salesforce. It's nothing. It's a good point. Maybe we should update it so it doesn't raise any questions. But we have the demos separate because at times we show just the ECC integration, other times the S4. Okay. Good catch.
Good catch, yes.
Was working on a large screen, maybe.
It's the advantage of 9 a.m.
Yes,
Meetup.
yes.
Everyone is.
Any other questions? Typically, we we have Joe in the room as well and other colleagues if you want to add, but it's like because now we are focusing on the connectivity side of things, right? But it's usually about greenfield migration, brownfield migration, advantages around those. Before that, I see please go ahead.
Could you tell us a little bit, if you go back to the process API example, you could tell us how you would do a brownfield migration from ECC to S/4HANA using MuleSoft.
Okay. So from the process API of...
I think if you use the other screen, that. So could you, for instance, like for the example with $50 and $500, like what if your ECC and your S/4HANA were synchronized and you're trying to move to S/4HANA from ECC? So how can MuleSoft help you do that?
Okay, so let me repeat the question as well, to see if I understood it correctly. So if there is already an integration between ECC and S4.
Let's say the customer is trying to go to S4HANA
Yes.
from ECC.
Yeah.
So how would we do that using, for instance, the process API?
Okay. Yeah, exactly. So maybe it's good to repeat that, or there are questions, because the source would be the same here, right? Orders would be coming from Salesforce. And then there will be routing in the process APIs, order fulfillment, for instance, either towards ECC or towards S4. And this could be done based on IDs, because typically, right, on order numbers, typically you say, okay, from 1st of November, all the orders created in Salesforce would actually go to S4. And because Salesforce handles the ID generation for you, right, you will have the switch configured in the process APIs. If the ID is something of an order created after 1st of November, send that to S4. If it's a change on existing order previously created, send that to ECC. And the same for products. Great question, Joe. Any other questions here in the room?
I have a comment. I really like the demo, first of all.
Thank you.
Because it's showing how it should be done.
Mm-hmm.
If you have modern platforms and a modern middleware, then you can actually achieve this.
Yes.
We've been in quite a few deliveries where they have legacy systems from, I don't know, from Flintstones or something. They're running on mainframes, have some Java interfaces, and they push files back and forth, and it means that creating order like here would be very common.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, one big customer, we made a whole order management system in Salesforce CPQ.
Okay.
Just to get data, so you could extract and import them one way or another, without integrations into a mainframe and continue the order processing there.
Wow.
So this really shows what you can do with a modern system and modern thinking. So you just know that once you have closed the opportunity as one, it's a seamless transfer and flow to SAP, and then you order number back. And
yeah,
if you can get this type of solution with, then I mean it's going to be a hell of a lot easier than dealing with old mainframes and a lot of work actually to get things done.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think this is a good continuation on the topic of how would you migrate, right? Because if you check, right, there's usually you talk about whether the switch to the modern ERP S/4HANA should be done in a greenfield fashion or a brownfield fashion, right? And there's advantages and disadvantages for both. And there's also further details around where your S/4HANA would be residing on-prem or in the cloud. But if we stay at the conceptual level, greenfield, right, means that you will have a fresh start of using the new S/4HANA. And this is an opportunity to re-architect to a more future-proof modern architecture, and also an opportunity to take out the heavy customization from the legacy ERP and do a more standard implementation. Because many customers today face a challenge, as they've been using ECC from the times when the ERP was at the heart of the organization. Everything was there. There was not a very good approach for integration 20 years ago. So they put in a lot of customization, right? And this is very rigid and brittle and difficult to maintain. So taking a greenfield approach in that case means that you might take more time, but you actually start new. It gives you the agility. Remove customization, move to more standard. Exactly, over the time. And then brownfield as an approach means that you would choose for migrating what already exists or part of the integrations that you already have in your legacy ECC. But as far as I know, there's one point there we can check on the website of SAP, because it's typically for on-prem, right? Because you will have S4 on-prem or cloud available. And then normally when you move from on-prem as it is, right, you might be looking into brownfield.
And I think to add on the top of it, this exact scenario could also be used for different technology of ERP, because in the end it's the same logic. No?
Exactly.
So you route at process layer where which ERP you want to hit, trying to get consolidated business object model, data model at the process layer.
Yes.
And this is the same that, I mean, migration, but also different ERP in-house.
Exactly. It is. We see it with many customers, right? They might have mergers and acquisitions or presence in countries, and every country uses, of course, different legacy ERP, right? And now we need to move to the more modern one, perhaps central, which would be S4. So always, right, there's a need to do that rip and replace, not a big bang, with control, with ability to test and validate as often as possible. And I'll share the link to the webinar I was referring to, because we do have a vision and approach for that with the platform. Go ahead, Joe.
The PI, I mean, if you want to move to S/4HANA, what do you have to do with your integrations that are in PIPO to get them to CPO or CPI?
Can you hear questions from the room, by the way? So
yeah, I am muted.
Very good.
Well, I guess with the new S/4HANA, you can dismantle the POPI layer, which is nothing more than a sub-services layer. So as HANA out of the box provide sub-services. So, but again, you can wrap your POPI solution in your API-led architecture with a dedicated system layer application, and decide your migration approach step by step, or
Brownfield.
I thought you had to redo but I thought I heard somewhere that you had to redo a lot of the CPI, like a lot of the integrations again from, if you had an ECC and you had to go to S/4HANA, I heard that the SAP with PIPO, you'd have to redo a lot of those or re-engineer a lot of those integrations for the S/4HANA. Is that?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, guys, I think we reached the time limit for this meetup. I'm really pleased to see that got also in an open discussion. That's exactly the feeling and the mood of this event. So thank you, MuleSoft and Salesforce, for hosting us. And of course, big applause to both the speakers. And you will find the recording and the slides on our website in case for your reference. So thanks everyone for joining. See you next.
Thank you.